I got to their heart. And that's what I really understood is it wasn't that they were behaving now that they had disobeyed and I had corrected them properly, but I had gotten to their heart.
I want to move from the role of husbands to the roles of fathers, that next logical step, right? How should men be viewing their role as a father?
Yeah, I think a synonym for father that'll be helpful is to think of yourself as a shepherd. So you got this flock of children, and your role is to keep this flock safe, to feed them, to provide for them, but also to train and raise them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So Ephesians 6 would be one of the key verses I'd hone in on with the role of father/shepherd. And as you raise them, as you train them up in the ways that are godly, what's one of the things that kids are going to do? Their sinful nature is going to raise its ugly head, and they're going to disobey and frustrate you as a dad. And so men tend to have an anger problem when it comes to discipline. But I think if we switch our thinking to say, oh, one of my sheep has gone astray and I'm the shepherd, I love this job, as opposed to, oh man, why do these kids always have to disobey at the worst time? I'm so mad. And then your anger just builds and you go in and you do a bad job of disciplining. But if you say, okay, this is awesome, I'm their shepherd, I get to help bring them back into this circle of safety, I get to train them and protect them, then you'll probably begin any disciplinary action in a way that's much more calm and reassuring and helpful for you and your child. And so I would literally, when my kids were young, I'd have these conversations with them and talk to them like my lamb and to say, hey, you're my little lamb, I'm your shepherd, and we wouldn't be having this conversation, I wouldn't be disciplining you and correcting you right now if you weren't mine. But you're mine, and I love you, and I want to protect you from the wolf that's out there. The devil is on the prowl trying to take you astray, and I'm not going to let that happen. And so I'd have a conversation like that with them. Often there'd be, a punishment of some kind, but then we'd hug, we'd pray, and they'd go about their business. And I always love to tell this one story that happened, but I start with a disclaimer. What I'm about to tell you, men, there's no guarantee it's going to happen to you. It happened to me one time, and that was it. But I had this conversation with one of my young kids who had disobeyed, and I was explaining to them that, you're my child. That's why we're doing this. I love you. You're mine. And this is for your good and protection, because as Ephesians 6:1 says, you need to honor your mom and dad. You need to obey us in the Lord. And why? So that you can enjoy a good life. And I want you to have a lot of birthdays. And so I do this. We have, a time of punishment. We hug and pray. They're about to leave the room and they turn around and say, Dad, thank you. That was good. And they left. I was just like, right. Wow. Oh, wow. It was one of the best feelings as a dad that I got to their heart. And that's what I really understood is it wasn't that they were behaving now that they had disobeyed and I had corrected them properly, but I had gotten to their heart and they felt it and heard it. But it did reinforce in me, okay, yeah, calm discipline is so much better than angry discipline. And one of the ways that helped my thinking was I put on my shepherd's hat, took my shepherd's staff, as opposed to my, you just inconvenienced my life, anger approach. So that's a practical piece of advice I always love to share that I hope can help guys, deal with taking the lead and making sure you're actually, training your kids and discipling them and disciplining them, again, in the love and nurture and instruction of the Lord.
Yeah, I will say your disclaimer was apt because in my 18 years of parenting now, even in those times when I'm trying to shepherd and parent and discipline like a shepherd, I literally laughed out loud when you said that because I've never had my daughter say to me, Dad, that was really good. Thank you. Now, I will say, I can usually see when I'm able to get to their heart, right? And I have one daughter especially, I won't say which one, but I have one daughter who often responds in a very appropriate way after discipline. However, it always takes her 30 minutes, right? She always has to wait until her spirit breaks a little bit and that pride in her breaks down. And then she'll go, okay, all is well with the world. And she's a new kid, right? So yeah, I love that story. And I will say for men, you may not have this happen in your house. However, it doesn't undermine the value of what Davis is saying here. Father like a shepherd. It is so important.
Well, again, I'll just reiterate, it only happened one time.
Right.
It was it's a story worth sharing.
If I could have one of those, it would probably make it all worthwhile, right? This episode of Rapid Response was brought to you by CTC Math. Visit them at ctcmath.com today.